So welcome everyone to the workshop 1 of compassion and forgiveness. I say workshop 1 because the workshop's repeated again later today for other time zones. And what we'll be covering today is a special emphasis on forgiveness and also compassion. And there'll be perhaps 2 or 3 exercises, a chance to share as well. Some of the people mentioned in the sharing about Tina Spalding's work, and some of you may not be aware of that name, just a minority. I'll just say Tina is a channel, and to her own surprise, a few years ago, Jesus came through, said he was the author of the Course in Miracles. I started to listen to that, and I found his teachings were in accord with the metaphysics and the practical teachings. And I thought, this seems the real guy. So it's up to everyone what they want to believe. But there may be some quotes from Jesus through Tina Spalding. And Course in Miracles itself is a channeled book, of course. And there may be some quotes I bring in from other channelings, even from extraterrestrials. I'd just be curious here if people believe there are such things as extraterrestrials that bring through good news to us. You can just raise a hand if you think there might be ETs out there that could bring through. Okay, some, yep. Okay. Just for the doubtful, one thing I heard the other day that's of interest was the NASA Space Agency had used one of our orbital telescopes to point to just one tiny area of our galaxy, kept the telescope there for a long time and found 3,000 planets. That led to one of the heads of the department saying there must be more planets in the universe than stars, and there are trillions of stars. So the question is, are they all empty of life, and the only life is on this planet? So that's just a little thing I'll drop in. And you never have to believe anything I say on these Zooms. I'll just take what you need. Okay, so that's a little preamble. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some diagrams and pictures just to help us get into the field of forgiveness. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen with you. So it's going to change in a moment. Can everyone see a picture on the screen now?
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So I'm starting you off with a challenge, radical forgiveness. And forgiveness, as it shows in brackets there, is very much concerned with acceptance and non-judgment. And that quote you see in the middle is from A Course in Miracles. I think virtually everyone is familiar with it. Some may not have picked it up yet. This was a channel book that came through a professor of medical psychology, Dr. Helen Schuckman. It was an answer to a prayer to heal the relationship between herself and her professor boss. And then a voice came through eventually and dictated, "This is A Course in Miracles. Please take notes." And the book was published in, 1996? And it's a self-study course designed to find inner peace through forgiveness and turning within for guidance. So there's a quote from it. "Today I will judge nothing that occurs." Of course, you will fail completely as you try that. But then the chance is to forgive yourself for not forgiving. That's always a good approach. But it's like having that intention. And you could try that during the duration of this workshop. And when a judgment comes up, you can say things like, "Well, no big deal. What's new? There we go again," because the nature of our sort of separated self, that's separated from the awareness that we're eternal formless spirits, which the Course in Miracles calls the Christ, is the norm here. It's the planet of separation. So we're bound to keep judgment Judgment is the food of the separate self, or the ego, as the Course defines it, keeps it going. And if we want to remain separate and special and different, and then we need an ego to do that. And so judgment is its food. There's nothing good or bad or right or wrong here. We just seem to have chosen to experiment with separation because it seemed a good idea at the time. Here's a line from the Course. Forgiveness offers me everything I want. And here's a line from an exercise we'll do later. This is my shortest forgiveness exercise. I used it yesterday to great advantage. When somebody upsets you, with someone on the TV, someone you know, you can say in your mind, I've no right to say you must be different. I have no right to say you must be different. Here's the acceptance part of forgiveness. And it reminded me when I said it yesterday of an old teacher of mine, Jiddu Krishnamurti. He once said something that really struck home to me. He says, all your suffering is in the gap between what is and what must be. All suffering is in the gap between what is, someone just insulted me, and what should be. They shouldn't be like that. And so forgiveness closes that gap to accept them as they are. Doesn't mean you don't have action. If that person's trying to hit you over the head with a hammer, you don't just stand there smiling saying, I accept you as you are, because you could be dead the next second. No, you would respond, but it would be a different response than anger and judgment. Lastly, the Course says, remember to smile at your ego when it takes off. It doesn't like that. It likes to be taken seriously. So smiling at it says, well, there you go again. What's new? I said I wanted to murder my mother today, and yesterday I wanted to murder the guy who cut me up on the road in his car. No big deal. I'll see you tomorrow, or probably in the next 10 minutes. So to be sort of light with this and not heavy, and not to beat yourself up, is great. And I'll pause from time to time if you want to throw a question in. And let's look at some of the benefits that happen automatically with forgiveness when you drop judgment. This is like a ladder back home. These are the rungs of forgiveness. The Course in Miracles just says your only thing here to do is join your classroom of forgiveness each day. That's the only purpose of being here. Of course, the ego says there's a ton of other purposes, but the Course says the planet is just here for your healing. And there's much, much better things waiting for you if you practice these lessons. So as you make some progress, you're climbing the ladder of forgiveness, automatically a quieter mind comes in. That's a byproduct of forgiveness, of dropping judgment. All these things are here now, actually, because the Course teaches time is an illusion. But we block them out in our judgment and criticism and angers and desiring to be separate. As you progress, you find perhaps suddenly you have an ability to heal. Might be laying on of hands, it might be talking with someone, it might be through a discipline of healing that you have, and suddenly it's much more effective. Wisdom, that's just waiting there. The Course in Miracles says we're still as God created us, and he created us in his image, perfect and eternal, which means we can't be the body because that's not eternal. But all those things that were given to us in creation are waiting. So at some point, the wisdom just comes in, the door flies open. It's not God saying, look, you've been a good boy and girl. It's automatic. Powers can come in. Psychic powers can come in, not for everyone, but for some. And then, at the high levels, you get a knowledge that we couldn't explain here, just a knowing, the universal knowledge. And the ladder just keeps going. Unconditional love is waiting. Another way of looking upon this is your frequency is going up, your vibration is going up. And the universe is a frequency match. You've created your life. Look around, that's it. No need to say good or bad or right or wrong. It's just a frequency match. The partners you're with match your frequency. The jobs you have, whether you're abundant or not, matches your frequency. So as you forgive, your frequency goes up and you draw in more and more abundance, more health, friends you can relate to, houses turn up, money turns up. It may not be so much in money, but you might find you're just given things. You might be given a house, given a car. Any questions before I move on?
Yeah, Michael, is it okay to take snapshots of some of these things?
Yeah, snap the lot. Yep, snap the lot.
Thank you.
Okay, have you managed to snap it, Rod?
Yes, thanks, Michael.
Do you want me to go back so you can snap the last one?
No, that's fine.
Got that? Okay.
Thank you.
This is a diagram from my first book, Healing the Cause. And it looks at the thought system that most of us are in, and where forgiveness is needed. This is the ego thought system. Give you a tiny bit of metaphysics from A Course in Miracles. The Course says, you dwell not here, but in eternity. You travel but in dreams, while safe at home. The Course looks at this universe as a dream. Our real home, which using biblical terms is heaven, is outside of time, outside of space. And who we are has always been God. God's outside of time, and God's creation, its extension, the Christ, is still there now. But we got free will. And the Course says, into eternity, where all is one, crept a tiny mad idea, of which we remembered not to laugh. So there's a lack of sense of humor, guys, that got us into this rather difficult planet. But boy, we thought it was a good idea at the time. And we just fell asleep in heaven. Because you can only have separation in a dream because it's not real. But boy, we did it in spades. This is back in the Bible. This is eating the apple in the garden. And if you look at the apple, written on it is separation is a great idea. Bite me. And so we did. At that point, the Bible says Adam fell asleep. Interesting to know that the Bible nowhere said that Adam woke up again. So I hope you're all enjoying the dream. That's all I can say. But deep down, though we're not consciously aware of it, we thought we'd been rather bad towards God, knocked him off his throne, took his power, walked out of heaven. And in the Garden of Eden story, God is really mad. He kicks us out and puts angels on the gate so we can't go back in again because we've been such sinners. But there is no sin, it's just error. It's interesting to look at the origin of that word. It was from archery, and it meant missing the mark. Not to be punished in hell for eating a sausage on Friday or anything. It just meant missing the mark. The thought that we separated from God, that's intolerable. We couldn't take that. We'd go psychotic if we were aware of that. So we had to deny it. But the guilt of the seeming separation is in us. And it runs underneath. As I say, here's most of the guilt we're not aware of. This is this iceberg of guilt here. We just have a bit of conscious guilt. And that comes up when somebody perhaps insults us or somebody looks at us the wrong way. It actually triggers that guilt. but we're not aware of it at the time. If someone says, you know, you're a selfish person, and you think, I'm not selfish at all, and you're very angry, but deep down, you feel in some area of your life that you're selfish. Well, guilt demands punishment. And so that guilt that we carry in our unconscious, we fear punishment will come from us. And the Old Testament is full of God handing out punishment, sending plagues, sending floods, sending locusts, demanding sacrifices. It doesn't get too much better in the New Testament, where God demands sacrifices of his only son, Jesus, more blood, I'm afraid, to absolve us of guilt. It's all ego nonsense, but we believed it because deep down we believe it. But it's just a nightmare. And the point of forgiveness is to wake us up from the nightmare. So this is the unholy trinity: sin, guilt, and fear running in the background, which most of us are not consciously aware of. Too much to bear, we push it into the unconscious, we sweep it under the mats. This is the double mechanism of the ego is simple denial projection, does it all the time. So we try to avoid our guilt, it says here, by repressing our sense of sin out of our awareness, sweeping it under that carpet. But you know, you get bumps in the carpet and you trip over it. And all through the day, we're reminded of this. You see, when something difficult happens, perhaps like around COVID, some leader on the news, your mother, your father, if there was no guilt in us, our response each time would be compassion. Just another guilty son of God doing crazy things, trying to be happy by attacking us or whatever. We just have compassion. If you don't have compassion, to some degree, somewhere, you have that trait. If Hitler upsets you, then somewhere in you, there is a Hitler. Hitler is a good example of just an ego run wild. The population gave him the power to run wild. And using my power over you. Well, we all do that at some time, don't we? Perhaps over our children, over our partners, the boss, over the employees, using our power to get what we want. So we deny we're the problem. We say the problem's in the world. This is projection. The attempt to rid ourselves of our guilt by placing it on someone else. I'm not the problem. Hitler is. Our prime minister is. My mother is. What my boyfriend just said to me. But they're our teachers. They're telling us what we've swept away. And in fact, when we project and accuse others, we know at some level we're being dishonest, because they're just a mirror to what's unhealed in us. What does that do? It composes, it completes the vicious loop. And the sin we feel inside is increased. So we feel more guilt, more fear, more denial. This is anger. You know, when we start shouting at someone, we're desperately trying to throw our guilt at someone. And we might even walk out and slam the door, magically hoping in that projection will stick on them and not come back to us again. The only thing that can undo this is forgiveness. And the next step we're going to do is a tiny exercise on that. But any questions at this point?
May I ask the question, where would you place a feeling of lack, which is very important for the ego, like lack of, perpetual lack of anything?
Right. Well, the very root of lack is when we left heaven, we had everything there. Perfect peace. It's the prodigal son story that's in the Bible, and the Course uses that. You know, the man's at home with perfect parents, doesn't have to worry or think about anything. He's always curious, what's outside the garden wall? I see a door, and the parents say, you have everything here. And he's curious, and he goes out into the world, and the door slams behind him, and he then has to find his food and find his shelter and find friends. He has a deep sense of lack. He's lost something. We all carry that in us. There's some very poetic passages in the Course, you know, that says, you're not at home here. And deep down, you know that. And you feel a terrible lack of the eternal love of God, the eternal safety. That's in the unconscious for most of us. So then we project it out as, I've got a lack of money. I have a lack of girlfriends, boyfriends, lack of physical security. I might have to leave the country if they don't give me a visa. The tidal waves coming, my house is gone. We don't see at the time, it's the lack of heaven, of the awareness of heaven. So we just perhaps become more ego, try and get more money. Look at millionaires. Most of them don't get satisfied with having millions. They must have more millions. They don't realize it's like they have a hole in their heart, this separation from spirit, and they think they can fill it by piling money in. So it doesn't work. So they realize 5 million is not enough. I need 10 million. So until we practice forgiveness and reunite with our spiritual self, the feeling of lack must be there always.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions before we try a little exercise? You need a piece of paper and a pen. It doesn't have to be very big for this exercise. Just going to write a few things down. If you lack a pen or paper, you just have to memorize it in your head. But it'd be great to be able to write it down. I'll give you a moment to find that. Anyone need more time to find a bit of paper?
Nope.
Good. Okay, this exercise is very simple and very important. What I want you to do is make a box like this. And I want you to think of someone you really know well. Might be a parent, might be a partner. Obviously, things you like about them and things you dislike about them. And in this top left box, you say the qualities I like about, put the person's name in, Jane, are. Well, Jane's gentle and sensitive, caring. The way oh, well, Jane suddenly become transgender. Sorry about that, but that's topical, isn't it? And a good listener. But the qualities I dislike about Jane is her anger, and she drinks a lot and smokes a lot and is rather lazy and jealous. So I've just chosen a few there. Now you pick the person, put their name in. I'll give you a minute or two to put a few in the left column and a few in the right column. Does that exercise make sense? The more you write, the better. Still try and get 3 or 4 on each side. Does anyone like some more time?
Oops.
Sounds good. Okay, so I want you to go to the top of the sheet and cross out that person's name and write your own name in. And anyone who hates me at this point will just have to practice forgiveness. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the heart of forgiveness here. Let's take the left-hand column. That's a bit easier to start with. You can't appreciate something in another person unless it's in you to some degree. It may be there to a smaller degree or a larger degree, but you have to have those qualities inside you. Now, I've found that this left-hand column can be more of a shock to some people than the right-hand column. They might have such a low opinion of themselves at the moment. They say, no, that's completely wrong, Michael. I've got none of this. But you do, otherwise you couldn't recognize it, you see. It'll just somebody demonstrating something you don't understand or you misunderstand it. So obviously our exercise is going to be about the right-hand column, but just take a moment to appreciate that those qualities are in you. As I say, you know, if you chose Jesus, then there'd be probably less in you than at the moment. But remember, he said, you know, everything I can do, you can do, and even greater things you can do. So you were created as Jesus and higher. So congratulate yourself, you got the left-hand column. Now over to the right-hand column. This is where the issues begin, of course. And the first thing I have to say is that the form can be different. Let's say you put down smoking. I hate Jim because he smokes. And you don't smoke, so you can smile and say, that's not me. But then you have to look a bit deeper. What does it represent when he's smoking around you? Well, obviously he, and you may sort of actually murmur, you know, do you have to smoke? But he carries on smoking. He's not valuing your worth and your health, and you're putting up with it. So your self-worth is a bit low as well. So the smoking may be actually mirroring your lack of self-worth, not to speak up, or it might be something else, but there's something going on there.
Yeah.
Or it might be, I dislike Jane, my wife, because she's so fat, and I'm not fat, and people looking at you would say, no, you're not, but you have this secret hate of your rather thick thighs. You know, you don't like putting the swimming costume on because your thighs look a bit thick. And then that people remind you of your thick thighs, you see. So the form is different. And someone who's obese, you know, is normally not a very healthy person and maybe quite unhappy. Maybe food is the only pleasure they have left. Here is a call for compassion. And that will be of great help. And of course, in these times of the last 2 years of the COVID and the vaccine, and many of us have looked at this, find that a lot of injustice has been done. A lot of things that we've been asked that we must do needn't have happened, and a lot of people have suffered. Very easy to demand vengeance, attack, and the truth needs to be known. But what if you could bring forth compassion? There's that line in the course, you know, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. And, you know, believe it or not, even Hitler thought he was doing a wonderful thing. You know, if we get rid of some of the races that don't contribute to humanity, put them in concentration camps and kill them, then we'll all be better off. We'll all be more intelligent, more healthy. And anyone who tries to stop me doing this is evil. Forgive him, Father, he knows not what he does. So compassion is very powerful in relationships and also in what's going on in the world, and will do, I think, for some time to come. So can you recognize on that side things that you're sort of, as a course would say, you're guilty of, the ego would say you're guilty of? Let's spend a moment having a look at that. And it's not a pleasant exercise, because perhaps all your life you felt your anger was justified. Just take the example of anger, for example. Many people at this point say, I live with an angry partner and I've hardly raised my voice in my life. You know, that's not me. But do you have a silent anger? I had a wonderful partner once who was never angry, but if I really misbehaved, she never talked to me for the rest of the day. That silent anger punished me. And I would prefer she would shout at me and get it out of her system. But I was tortured for a day with silent. Her anger was burning silently inside of her, and I was the victim of it. If I chose to be the victim, of course. Again, I could have exercised compassion there, seeing her suffering and the way she was dealing with it. Or I could have exercised forgiveness and realized I've got anger as well. Anyone want to ask anything about the right-hand side? Indeed. Anyway, that could be homework. You can ponder on this. And but it's the way home, you see. Forgiveness can bring up into the light that which is sort of down, often in the unconscious. And otherwise we're stuck in the denial and projection. I'll show you a lovely cartoon I came across once, and it's got a Course in Miracles quote on there, which sort of sums this up. It's Pogo, I think his name. We have met the enemy, and he is us. The Course in Miracles quote, learn this and learn it well, for it's here delay of happiness is shortened by a span of time you cannot realize. Jesus is talking about thousands of years here, folks. You never hate your brother for his sins, but only for your own. Whatever form his sins appear to take, it but obscures the fact that you believe them to be yours, and therefore meriting, quotes, a just attack. So that's a benefit of forgiveness. It implies there, of course, reincarnation, coming back, relearning. You could erase 10 lives in one forgiveness. Some of us hear and talk about the ascension energies coming into the solar system over the last 40, 50 years, propelling us more into spiritual awakening. But it does that by bringing up the darkness in ourselves and in the big organizations in the earth to give it a chance to be healed, create space for the light to come in and move us on to our next step of evolution. If you want to ascend, do this. And just a little illustration of how we can see things that are not there, which is projection. Or what projection is, you take what's in your mind and stick it on the world and say, look, that's what the world is. But let's try a little experiment. I'm going to bring up a picture. I want you to tell me if you see a young or an old woman. I can't see all of you, but those I can see. Can you raise a hand if you see an old woman? If you see a young woman? Well, there you go. So I can see already. Now, if I was to put you in a room and say, oh, you know that young woman we just saw, Michael, that was an old woman. No. And the others would say, what do you mean? It's a young woman. And we'd probably be in a battle quite quickly. This is over a drawing. But this is what happens. We see someone, they say they're bad, and someone says, no, they're wonderful. And we're projecting our own mind on. So just for fun, to see if those who can't see the young woman, Here's the young woman's eyelash, the young woman's nose. She's looking to the side. Here's the young woman's cheek. You might want to put the hand over the picture, you know, so you can't see that to the right. So it's a young, quite attractive woman looking to the left. If you can't see the old woman, here's her eye, here's her hook nose, here's her mouth. Can you see it now? You still may find it difficult.
Yeah.
If you take a snapshot of the screen, and you can go back later. The trick is the young woman's eyelash and her nose and her cheek, the old woman's eye and the hook nose. Okay, I'll move on from that one. More homework for you. Oh God, you didn't know it was going to be this bad, did you? So here's a diagram to help this projection of what's going on. So we said before, the separation from God, actually, or the seeming separation is where all the guilt is. I'm not aware of that in most of us, in the unconsciousness, but that's what gets triggered every day when people say something to you, or something happens. And when that guilt gets triggered, it's so unpleasant, we throw it out of ourselves as projection. We deny we're the problem. We're not the angry one. They are. So here we are blaming other people. They're the ones that upset us. But actually, the guilt can go another direction onto our body, as sickness. Now, why would this be? Well, the ego, which is actually the thought of separation, wants to keep living. It's our child, but you know, it doesn't like us much. It wants to keep going. It doesn't want us to go back into our mind where all our problems are. Everything's in the mind. It wants you out of there, because in there is also our help. In the Course, this is called the Holy Spirit, the voice for God, the comforter. We could turn every problem once we see it over and say, please show me how to be at peace here. And you'd get an answer. And that's the last thing the ego wants you to do, because it's the beginning of the end of the ego and your feeling of separation and difference and specialness. So come out here, it says, into the world. This is where the problem is. This is where it needs to be. These people need to be fixed up or attacked. Or if that's not working, sickness will make you move your awareness away from truth to your body. You start to focus on the body, and truth is the way. You can't listen to the Holy Spirit because this is where the problem is. So to the ego, doesn't matter whether the problem's here with other people or on your body, you're out of the mind. It can breathe a sigh of relief. If you get back into the mind, you'll find the ego, and through forgiveness, it will disappear. And you'll wake up to this eternal formless spirit you are. So stay here. So some of these dictators seem reasonably healthy. That's because they're always blaming other people. And others, perhaps some quiet, gentle person is always sick because they're always blaming themselves. Ego doesn't matter. Either way works fine for them. So forgiveness will also heal you. Heal your mind, heal your body. Okay, let's rearrange my screen a bit here and have a look at that's another aspect of the ego. The attack, the desire to get rid of guilt by blaming others, will actually reinforce the guilt in yourself, because you know it's dishonest. You know you're only attacking because you don't feel good about yourself. That's a dishonest act, makes you feel guilty. You're probably not consciously aware of that. You just feel more guilty, so your anger perhaps gets louder. You shout louder. More guilt, more shouting. There's the vicious circle, what they call the guilt attack cycle. Here's the first quote from one of Tina Spalding's channeled books. You can free yourself from the karma of chaos. That's her last book. They ask if you read the books to read them in order, and that's the last one. So I wouldn't go there first. It's quite startling. If you want the order of the books, let me know. I can always email one to you. But here it comes. If you hate something and you focus all your energy on it, you will get more of it. Just ponder that a moment. And it may be righteous anger. You know, I'm angry against Hitler. I'm angry because I was forced to have the vaccination. I'm angry because of that dictator there's just killed thousands of people. Hate is an energy. Vibration attracts vibration. You bring it into your life. So watch who you hate, how you hate, and when you hate, and make a different choice. If you invest energetically in something, then you'll get more of it. Have no doubt about it. So know that the ripples of hatred and judgment that you send out will come back to you in the form of magnified energy of the very same frequency. And that is something to contemplate, is it not? Now there's a screenshot worth snapping. Anyone have any questions or shares on that? We'll be moving into a forgiveness exercise in a moment. Have I caused brain death? Why did I come on this workshop? I could be out having a cup of coffee somewhere. This workshop's not free. It's costing me my peace of mind.
Michael, thank you. I'm very tired by now, so I might look at it at the recording, and I still have my long meditation practice to do, so I'll have to sign out, but thank you so much.
That's my pleasure. Yes, there'll be a video of this afterwards, so no problem. Thank you for joining. Bye for now.
Michael, I do have something I'd like to ask about that. As I mentioned earlier, I am really struggling, although I can see, I don't know, positive things about people's souls and stuff, but I really am struggling with my beliefs about, like, Klaus Schwab, or let's say Trudeau, or I really am. And so, and sometimes I'm focusing quite a lot on some of the things that I look at and say, gosh, you know, if people don't wake up to this, it's going to be really, really scary. And so, but then you think about, well, if you're focusing on that, you're bringing more of that into your life. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, I want to be informed, but I need that balance. And I flip-flop. I go back and forth on this a lot.
I think you echo the thoughts of probably millions, and mine too. And that's something you said there was important. You know, I want to be informed, and I've made a point of being informed right from the beginning. And I smelt a rat about this vaccine, and this is not a workshop about whether you should take it or not. That's up to you. But I decided to get informed, and I've done a lot of that. And then I run into the issue you brought up, Carol, like, from my information, there's not a lot of selfish people out there with some objectives to sort of control us. And we just heard recently from Pfizer, who admitted it's not a vaccine. And Moderna admitted that 2 years ago. So for 2 years, we've been supposed to be taking vaccines that weren't vaccines. So this is just the start. But I've known this, and you've known this. So it's very easy to start getting rather angry, especially if it affects your children and other people, or you've seen people drop dead with it. So then I had to look at I want to be informed, but I want to balance my life. So I made sure I had lots of walks in nature, and I would tend to skim headlines and say, yeah, well, that reinforces, I understand that. Well, there was a particular article that was of interest, I read it. But I cancelled recently a number of subscriptions, so I've got the bare minimum just to keep me informed. Because as that last quote said, you know, if you get dragged into the anger and the hatred, what we're told is that this planet, what's going on, is just a projection of the consciousness and subconsciousness of all the people on it. So if we're all filled with rage and anger and attack, we just get war after war after war on this planet, which we do. So if you rage against the trees being burnt down, you'll end up with more trees being burnt down, because your anger joins that cloud of anger and that filled violence and the world we have. So then we got to be informed and not get upset. Well, this is where forgiveness comes in, because you mentioned Schwab, you know, head of the World Economic Forum, that has some rather devilish plans for us all, so the technocrats can run the world. Trudeau, who's a real example, you know, of pushing things down people's throats and punishing them if they don't accept. Do we have Schwab? Do we have Trudeau in us? If you're angry, that last exercise says yes. Now, not to that extreme. Have we in these last 2 years tried to push our point of view about COVID down someone's neck? Even though we're right. And we might be right, you know. But have we done a Trudeau on someone? And we know better than you. And if you just follow exactly what I say, you'll be all right. That's a Schwab on you. To see that, to smile at it and go, oh, here we go again. Hello, Trudeau. Oh, I've got my little Trudeau inside me. I'll have some compassion for you, because that's the way I've had to survive in life, is, you know, putting my foot down and telling you what I want. And I don't like the behavior of my children, my boss, or my partner. So I'm going to make a real point. And I've got righteous anger, you see, because I am right. But the problem is it's anger. So it's not easy. But I think if you have these tools of forgiveness, you say, okay, there's a Trudeau in me, no big deal. Then you can soften. And you've got to do this each time it comes up. And then, as we see later, the first stage of forgiveness is saying, thank you, Trudeau, for being a great mirror to show I've got one in me. Without you, I would not have seen it. I would not have had the chance to forgive it. Well, if you like, we're going to do an exercise now. You can choose Trudeau. You lucky person, Carol. Others can choose Schwab, or if you're having a bad day, you can choose me for the worst. So what we'll do now, we'll have this exercise, and from it, you can share in pairs afterwards. And I'd like you to get nice and comfortable. And I'm going to mute you all so we don't have sounds coming in. So get comfortable, relaxed, and close your eyes. Just take a few gentle, deep breaths to help to breathe out the busyness of the workshop. And with the next breath, just breathe into your legs, tense the muscles of the legs. As you breathe out, relax the muscles. Next breath, breathe in and tense the muscles of the stomach. And relax. Breathe in through the arms, make fists of the hands. Breathe out and relax. Breathe in and squeeze the shoulder blades together. And let go. Lastly, if your neck, head feel a bit tense, you can turn your head around on your shoulders. And now count backwards silently from 15 to 0. Feel yourself becoming more relaxed as you count. Surrounding you now at all times is a presence, beings, spirit, whatever word you want to call it, guides that have such a deep love for you. They understand you better than you understand yourself. They have absolutely no judgment of you. They see you having some nightmares they love to wake you from. But they won't go against your free will. They need to be invited. So whatever word you want to use, angels, spirit, Jesus, invite them to come to you now, to be in this session and to help you with this forgiveness. Yes, make an angel happy today. Invite them in. If it helps, you can imagine it as a beautiful light shining down upon you or a hand you hold. They'll walk you through this exercise with their help. If you wish, you can turn to them now and say, please show me someone I need to forgive, or you might know already. But it might be something more inside you that you're having trouble with. Maybe you feel ashamed of yourself or guilty, or you hate your jealousy or your fear. So choose a person outside yourself, or if no one comes, choose something inside yourself. Maybe someone comes who you thought you've completely forgiven, and you've done work there, but there's still some more like rings of the onion to deal with. Now make it real for you. Make it come alive. If it's some person, it could be some political figure on the TV. Try and take your memory back to when they were last speaking and perhaps how angry you felt or fearful that you felt. Or if it's something inside you, you bring that anger or shame up, a lack of self-worth. Make it real. As you make it real, you'll start to feel it somewhere in your body. It's always reflected in the body somewhere. The psychological tension, or maybe a little bit of a pain. It's all right to feel angry. It's all right to shout at the person. It's all right to feel unworthy or jealous. You might imagine that situation with someone where that feeling came up. Feel it. Feel it in the body. And if it's easy to do, you can put an accepting hand over that part of the body where you feel the tension or the pain. This is a creation. Just take a moment to examine that area, how big it is. what shape it is. How deep does it go into the body? How dense does it feel? Does it feel any hotter or colder than the rest of the body? What emotion, what feeling does it have? If it could speak to you, and it can, what's it saying? I feel afraid, I feel angry, I feel jealous. Just listen to the voice. And you can ask it, why did I create you? What do I get from this feeling? It's unpleasant, but I've made you, I keep you. Why did I create you? If Michael was to wave a magic wand and take it immediately out of you, how would you feel? Upset, relieved? Do you still need it? Turn to your guides, turn to spirit and say, please show me a picture, a symbol that represents this pain I carry in regards to this other person or to myself. Don't try and create anything. Just let something spontaneously arise, an image, a picture that describes this pain you carry. When it comes, just look at it, be interested in it, accept it as a teacher. This represents your unforgiveness. And part of you wants it, serves you in some way. Maybe they're the guilty one, they're the sin, not me. Ask yourself, is it time to be free now? Is it time to be healed of this? Are you tired of carrying it, even though it feels justified? Remember, you're an eternal, formless, amazing spirit. Does that spirit need this thing? If you feel it is time to be healed, ask spirit to transform this symbol, transmute it, heal it, and see what the second symbol is that comes to you. If you've now got two symbols, be honest with yourself. Which one do you want to keep? It's all right if you want to keep the old one. You still need it for some reason. But if it is time to be free, just take hold of the second symbol. And now picture standing in front of you, the person where you've been upset, where you've been judgmental. Or if it's a part of yourself, you could see it perhaps as a small distressed child who feels guilty or jealous or angry. They've been your teachers. They've been showing you something unhealed in you. Take this symbol and walk over and give it to the person who was your enemy. And see them light up with a smile, a joy, as they feel the healing that they so desperately need, that you're now giving them and giving to yourself as well. As you bless them, you'll bless yourself. Perhaps you want to say something to that person or to your child within. Something you've learned, maybe. Maybe they have something to say to you. Take what time you need to feel complete with the exercise and be happy with as far as you've got. And when you're ready, just come back to the room. Okay, I'll stop the recording now. I'll pause the recording. Right, now you can hear me, I hope. I always forget to do that. Good.
I missed the end of it, but I can imagine a little bit.
Oh, you get brutally cut off when it whispers back. So
Right at the punchline.
I was telling how unjustifiably treated I felt as a child, and I was often crying, and enjoying the pleasure of self-pity as well, all rolled in. And my mother said something very unfair to me in front of all these people. So I went indoors and I cried on the steps. And I had my first voice perhaps come and said, "It's time for you now, Michael, to stop crying." And it hit me like a thunderbolt. And I didn't. That never happened again. In fact, years later, I had to rediscover how to cry again because I'd gone too far the other way. You know, there's a time for tears, you see. But it was like, okay, time to leave that self-pity behind. Great. Does anyone want to share anything briefly with the group from that exercise? Don't have to, but there's a space now for you.
Well, I will say that I'm going to redo that one. That had some wonderful aspects, and my choice of forgiveness has all kinds of juicy opportunities for me to revisit.
Yes, we won't mention who it was, but in the end, we were giving homage to this person as a master of forgiveness teaching, a master of mirroring to us at this moment. And without him, we couldn't see all the things in our unconscious that need healing. So thank you. Stay around a bit longer.
Michael, I would say that following on from the early exercise that you had, with it, things that you like and things that you don't like, and that then you realize that, you're actually talking about yourself. It became very clear in that exercise that really it's not about you. Yeah, it's not about the person. Everything, all of these projections, they're not about the person at all. It's all about me, but it's not really like that either. So
yeah, it's powerful stuff, isn't it? And things we don't want to look at usually. That's why we project them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chip in? Okay, let's look a little deeper into forgiveness. I'll bring up the sharing the screen again. And too many slides here, so we're going to move forward a bit. Oh, I'll just hover on that one a moment. Our ego is something that we have to keep pumping up, otherwise it deflates. And behind the ego actually is our reality, our spirit, our wonderful light that would block it out. So judgments are like a pump. And if you forgive, you stop pumping this thing, and the ego's got a hole in it. It deflates, and then the wonderful light that's behind it comes through. And there's just a few examples of projection, the real problem in our unconscious mind, and where we think the problem is. Our desire for vengeance means we'll hate murderers. Our spiritual poverty is reflected in financial poverty, and that's where we think the problem is. Suppressed anger, we get upset about hostile people. Our desire to control others, our children, our employers, our partners, means we'll hate dictators. My late wife, she was born a channel and was always had that 24/7 guidance. And during the first Gulf War, we were living at the Findhorn community, and there were light groups wanting to send light. Though sometimes they weren't sure where to send the light, to the victims or the victimizers, and she wasn't sure whether to join the group. And she asked her guide, and it said, "Where in you is there a Saddam Hussein?" And they explored that, and then suddenly it was shown a mountain. Saddam was on top with a big mirror rotating, and the whole of the world was gathered at the base of the mountain. And he said, while you have dictators inside you, you will always have dictators in your world. Your greatest contribution, Celise, is to forgive the Saddam Hussein in you. So, forgiveness. Going back to our iceberg of guilt. And let me just get this out of the way. So we talked about our guilt being triggered. Someone calls you stupid or jealous or whatever. And instead of, excuse me, projecting it out, we're asked to look at it without judgment, which is at the heart of forgiveness. Oh, look, I've discovered Saddam Hussein in me. And if you can look at it with awareness and without judgment, it's like a bit of the iceberg breaks off. You've undone denial, and your guilt pile gets a bit less. From the Course in Miracles, no one can escape from illusions unless he looks at them. For not looking is the way they are protected. There's no need to shrink from illusions, for they cannot be dangerous. So looking without judgment is a major step. The Course does give 3 stages of forgiveness. It's actually contracted into about 1 sentence, so you can easily miss it. But my own teacher, Dr. Kenneth Wapnick, spotted it, and I like the way he expanded on it. In the first stage, the old finger pointing is there. What you said or what you did, you hurt me. The problem's out there and not in me. In the first stage, as we did in the last exercise, we see, my God, they're mirrors to what's unhealed in me. If you really get through that stage, you say, thank you for showing me this. You're my teacher. That's difficult, but we've got another stage to go. But just to bring that home, you don't need to go to India to find a guru. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend will do just fine, or anyone else that pushes your buttons. Another channeling from Tina. It's not until you understand the principle of projecting the unwanted into the world that you begin to be able to come to some place of forgiveness and peace. That's when you're really starting to understand forgiveness. This is not the world's forgiveness. Then you reach the second stage, and the ego's very upset with the first stage, so it quickly tries to come back in if you let it and say, I told you what a miserable sinner you are, always being upset and over angry, vengeful people, and now look, you're angry and vengeful. And a guilt can easily descend over you at this point. And the ego breathes a sigh of relief and says, oh, you're still my child. I can still continue living as a separate thing. It's here you got to decide, can I give my guilt away? And what you start to realize is your life will change. Let me take an example. Let's say in your partnership, your marriage, you've mistaken jealousy for love. And you're a jealous person, and though say your husband is tired of this, secretly he loves it because he thinks she's so, interested and cares for me. She's jealous the moment I look at another woman. But you're tired of this jealousy and you decide to give it up. And you say to your husband, well, of course, John, I can understand you looking at a beautiful woman. That's just natural. And he sort of smiles, but feels uncomfortable inside. Like, she's not jealous. Does she still love me? I can't seem to upset her. And he goes out and he's caught kissing someone at a party. And she said, well, no, it's not appropriate, but I can understand you've had a drink and she came over. He said, oh, you're so forgiving. And now he's really alarmed. And he leaves her and goes and looks for another jealous woman. And then he's back on the frequency that he enjoys. He doesn't like the new frequency of his wife. but she is now drawing to her a man of a higher frequency. So can you let go of the guilt? You can send out a prayer. I'm the guiltless, sinless child of good. Please take it. The prayer can help. It's not completely necessary, because if you just say, enough of this jealousy, it no longer serves me. If my life's going to change, so be it. I want to grow. These first two stages are ours. The third is not. It's automatic. It's divine. It's the welcome to the guides, the Holy Spirit, and they will lift the guilt from you. The quote at the bottom might be a bit small to read. The Holy Spirit asks of you but this: bring to him every secret you have locked away from him. Open every door to him and bid him enter the darkness and lighten it away. At your request, he enters gladly. He brings the light to the darkness if you make the darkness open to him. You end up climbing the ladder of forgiveness if you walk this path. You begin with forgiveness is unwarranted. It's weak to forgive. The enemies must be punished. Then you move up a rung. There's still enemies. There's still baddies out there. It's not in you, but I'll forgive them. We're in the realm of, this is an improvement on this one, but you still think the problems out there are not in you. It's part of the forced forgiveness. There were some supplements that came after the course. And in the Song of Prayer, it talks about forced forgiveness, the forgiveness of the world, or forgiveness to destroy. And that's one of them, you know, the problem's in you, not in me, but as I'm superior to you, I will forgive you and don't do it anymore. That's the forgiveness of the world. It also talks about other forms. Might be the martyred saint, where you realize you're a terrible sinner, but everyone else is a terrible sinner. And you might actually get in competition about who's the most terrible sinner. And you can read about other forms of false forgiveness. True forgiveness is what we're talking about now. The problem may be in you, but it's certainly in me, because I don't have compassion for you. As you practice this, your world changes, it opens, in comes abundance and healing. And then one day you realize, my God, there's nothing to forgive. This has all been a dream. I've been asleep at heaven. What God created doesn't need forgiven, only what we've miscreated in the dream. There is nothing to forgive. We are still, and always have been, absolutely sinless. Remember, sin was missing the mark, an archery term. The Course says God does not forgive because he never judged. We can only sin in dreams. You can't kill the Christ. And when we awake through enough forgiveness, you realize no one's ever sinned. We just had nightmares. It'd be a sin if you could damage the Christ, but the Christ is outside of time, our eternal formless spirit. What's outside of time can't change. That would be the end of your path. There's a prayer of forgiveness in the Course. And when you're upset, I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. I made the decision myself, but I can also decide otherwise. I want to decide otherwise because I want to be at peace. I do not feel guilty because the Holy Spirit will undo all the consequences of my wrong decision if I let him. I choose to let him by allowing him to decide for God for me. Any questions at this point? I'd like to read you something. It's a channeling from those ETs, the Arcturians, on compassion and forgiveness, and also the steps that will take us to enlightenment, really. And it brings in compassion and it brings in forgiveness rather well. This is from the 90 Arcturians from Daniel Scranton. I get one of these every day through my email. You as the awakened collective and the ground crew don't always have a clear-cut idea of what you're supposed to be doing to help. And yet all of you have to do is look around, not judge, cut other people some slack, and hold space for them. And you'll get to that place where you feel compassion and unconditional love for them. This is the way for you to come to a place of acceptance and ultimately forgive those who are doing terrible things, saying terrible things, and still believing terrible things. Even though the vast majority of you are evolving your consciousness and moving past what they are clinging to. Then comes 4 steps that will take us home. If you can get to the place of acceptance, then you get to the place of forgiveness. If you can get to the place of forgiveness, then you get to the place of compassion. If you can have compassion for another human being in spite of what they are doing, saying, and believing that is deplorable to you, then you get to the place of unconditional love. And when you get to the place of unconditional love, that's when you become Source or God in a physical body. And that is how you complete your soul's journey. Once you let go of all that anger, hate, and resentment, you no longer have to repeat circumstances to bring them up, to trigger you, to make you feel what you no longer wish to feel. We are talking about helping the collective consciousness of which you are a part, to heal, to raise the level of consciousness, and to have more compassion for those who are suffering. Notice in that last line that if you don't forgive it, it'll come back again and again and again until you do. Not as punishment, but as an act of love, until you can free it out of your system and allow more space for the light to come in. In a moment, we're going to do a quickie forgiveness exercise, which I used the other day to effect. We won't need to pair up, but we can just try it out. Before that, any questions?
I'd love to have a copy of that. I listened to Daniel a lot, but I haven't seen that one. That was incredible. That's amazing.
Well, what I'll do is I'll put it now on the chat window, so you can just anyone can copy and paste. I've just found it, so I'll just copy the text. The wonders of electronics. I'm now bringing up the chat window. And it's not letting me paste it. So I'll just go back to, I'll just forgive Pages on Apple. I love you, Pages. I forgive you. You're having a rough day, obviously. And we naughty to everyone. I'm going to target first Carol, see if it will send it to Carol. I'll close the chat window and reopen it. Type message here. No. Send me an email, Carol, and I'll paste it into the email. You're muted. It must be the dark forces of trying to come in and take it over, and they shall not win. We will send them love, not hate. Just joking, guys. Any other questions before the exercise? Okay, this is your quickie forgiveness exercise, guys. You can make it even shorter. I did it in one line yesterday. So something upset you. Maybe it's a bit busy. We can always go to the toilet and do it there. That's a good place, I find. It's usually there's no one there. So just close your eyes. Just pick someone you're having trouble with. You might want to welcome Trudeau or Klaus Schwab or anyone else you like back in. Just if you can't think of anyone, just choose someone you don't like. See them standing there in front of you. Now see a light coming down. And that light makes them feel happy. You might feel at the moment they don't deserve it, but like everyone, they're struggling. See them smiling. And now you say to them, I have no right to say you must be different. Repeat. I have no right to say you must be different. This is acceptance. All that pain is in that gap between what is and what should be. Sensing their pain, send out a prayer for this person. Asking for their healing and their peace. Because they have lost their peace, like you do. Try and make your prayer sincere, for it will come to you as well as them. This may be difficult, but say, thank you for being a mirror and showing me I have behavior similar to yours. Thank you for being a mirror and showing me I have behavior similar to yours. If you can, walk over and give them a hug. And when you feel complete with as far as you've gone in the exercise, knowing you can repeat it, just come back into the world and back into the workshop. That exercise has been put on the Mighty Networks, and some of you might know about this. There's a few spiritually orientated social groups hosted by a firm called Mighty Networks. I have my own one. And once a month, I give workshops like this on different subjects, and also once a month, a group healing session for an hour. And details of that group are on the email that I sent out to you if you want to try it out as a free trial, and then it's $10 a month. I also posted it on Tina's Mighty Network as well. And there's other Mighty Networks connected with A Course in Miracles out there, which I can tell you about if you're interested. The very shortest version of that exercise is what I did the other day to great effect, was I have no right to ask you to be any different than you are. Because that's where all that pain is coming from. Trudeau, you must not be like Trudeau. Oh, just a moment, there's a Trudeau in me. We've just got a few minutes left. Does anyone want to ask a question or share anything before we complete today? A video of this will be made available today, and I'll send an email out to you. It'll be on my video channel. So if you're on my channel, it'll come up. I've also, by the way, started, if you know, an app called Insight Timer. I've moved all my healing exercises like this. I've duplicated them onto Insight Timer. It's a free app. Just look up my name and Michael Dawson, and you'll see they're all in audio form. So it's pretty convenient on the phone. So there's the website I've got, the video channel, the Mighty Networks. I'm expanding and expanding. So any last questions or sharings? You lovely group. Don't forget to unmute yourself if you do. And if you want to do this again, you can come back this afternoon or in the middle of the night, depending where you are.
I'll pop up in there. I just like to say thank you very, very much. It really called to me. And I'm so glad, how we all experience this. We might hear some of the same things, but until you're ready to hear it, until you're ready to actually put something into place, it doesn't work. It just has to be the right time. And just doing that exercise with Mr. Trudeau was really powerful. And Ross said the same thing about, you see that in yourself. And wow, it has really brought up some wonderful things. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Carol. It was nice working with you. And maybe I should share the quick book story because it's so powerful, isn't it? When I was researching time, and my teacher, Ken Watley, made a book, Time, a Vast Illusion, from the Course. And Jesus, many places say, forgive, save 1,000 years. You go, 1,000 years or 10 lifetimes. And then I came across these books where you could choose at the end of the chapter where the story went. Chapter 1, Jane meets John. End of the chapter, they break up, go to page 15. They stay together, go to page 20. So I'm in a romantic mood, I go to page 20. End of chapter, car crash, Jane dies. You see this as a great lesson to move forward in life, go to page 30. You feel terribly victimized and start drinking, go to page 50. So I go to page 50, and at the end of that is see a lesson or continue drinking. And you go to that chapter. Now in that book, it happens to be 10 chapters, 10 lives as an alcoholic. But you could, in any one of those chapters, say, enough of self-pity. I forgive myself and the person who killed my wife in the car. And you jump to another chapter. In that book, there's the chapter called Waking Up, Accepting the Atonement. Now, you hold that book in your hand, past, present, and future. There is no time, but you're deciding which chapter you're reading. You could take the long path, the ego chapters, the self-pitying, the alcoholic. You might take 50 chapters to get to the waking up one, 50,000 years. Or you might take all the chapters recommended by the Holy Spirit and get there in 1,000 years or 10 years or in the next minute. The Course says love waits on welcome, not on time. We can be wake instantly. Trouble is, for most of us, the shock would kill us. So we need a certain time to realize that we're not humans, we're not women, we're not mums, we're not Course in Miracles teachers. And I still think there's a lot more pleasure I can get out of this earth life, and perhaps a couple more lives. I could be a king or the best Course in Miracles teacher in the world, and similar nonsense. So they're all the chapters in my book if I've already written them. But that's what forgiveness does. It's a chapter jumping. Time's an illusion. So we enjoyed talking about that, so I thought I'd share it now. Time, a vast illusion, as the Course says. Go home now if you want, or not. Any last shares before we all wave bye-bye for today? Okay.
Hello.
Oh, Rod, you're muted. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. Or maybe you're just laughing. I don't know.
No, I was saying very much appreciated this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for coming.
Hello, this is May.
Hi, mate.
Just one feedback. I find the course book itself very wordy and sometimes very difficult to understand. And I just love that you've put those words into picture form that helps me understand.
Thanks,
It's
mate.
that tells 1,000 words, replace 1,000 words.
With a picture, right?
Yes.
A number of those were from my first book,
Mm.
Healing the Course. I give that away free on my Mighty Network, and I posted it free elsewhere. So you can always email me the electronic versions. Anyone can if you like. Good. Thanks, mate. That it, folks. Great. Okay, video's coming up soon. You've been a great group to be with. And I'll be repeating this workshop later today. If you want to come back for more punishment, you're welcome. But for now, I'll say thank you for coming. And see you again soon, I hope. Bye for now.
Thank you.